I'm going to take on Biden. I'm going to take on Pelosi. I'm going to take on Schumer.
He's still the Republican frontrunner to take the Senate this fall, but new polling numbers from Josh Mandel's camp show that lead might be slipping as his challengers step up.
I think we need to send an adult to Washington.
And the president is in search of a political win.
Pass the Freedom to Vote Act.
Voting rights bills and other key items on the Biden administration agenda hitting a wall.
We're working aggressively on both.
The longest-running political show in Central Ohio starts now. This is NBC4's The Spectrum with Colleen Marshall.
New numbers in the Republican race for the U.S. Senate and reaction this morning from two frontrunners. Welcome to The Spectrum. I'm Colleen Marshall. The polling was paid for by a political action committee backing former state treasurer Josh Mandel. Now, back in July, it showed Mandel with a 40% lead in the Republican poll. At that time, J.D. Vance was in second place with 12%. But the new January numbers have Mandel still in the lead, but down by 14 points. And take a look at this. Former Republican Party Chair Jane Timken now has 15% in second place. And banker Mike Gibbons is up to 14%, up 11 points. I spoke with Mandel and Gibbons this week about these numbers and much more.
We have the people on our side. My opponents have all the money in the world. Folks who are watching TV are probably seeing ads for my opponents on TV, but they don't see any ads for me. But we're still winning. A
lot of what's important is whether they view you favorably or unfavorably. So people don't know me yet, and my name recognition is increasing. But we feel because of our favorable to unfavorable ratio that we will overtake Josh.
Mike Gibbons is moving in the right direction, largely due to all those ads. Your advertising is very combative. You come across as someone who you say you're going to take the fight to Washington, that you use a lot of football analogies about the other side being the enemy. What does that say to people who want people in Washington to work together and maybe not be so combative?
I don't think it's a physical fight, but I think reasoning, persuasion needs to be done, and much of what the left is proposing has been tried elsewhere and failed.
Gibbons believes because of Democrats, spending and inflation are out of control, and his successes in business make him the strongest candidate to go into the general election. Mandel says as the only former statewide office holder, he is the only Republican to take on a Democrat in November. You do have about 1 out of 4 Republicans in that poll in favor of you, but that means 3 out of 4 people who were polled don't want you. So if you win, it'll be with a plurality. And what does that bode well for the general election?
Well, I think everyone can agree that I'm the strongest candidate to win the general election. I'm by far the strongest candidate to beat the Democrat in November, but that's not the debate we're having right now. The debate we're having right now is a debate for the heart and soul of the Republican Party, the heart and soul of the conservative movement. And the reality is the people running against me in this campaign for U.S. Senate, they're a bunch of never Trumpers. They're a bunch of pro-impeachment, squish rhino Republicans.
Mandel sticks closely to his campaign pitch lines. His opponents he calls anti-Trumpers. He says he is pro-life, pro-gun, and pro-Trump.
My strongest supporters throughout the state of Ohio are evangelical Christians and Catholics and other Christians throughout the state of Ohio.
Mandel is campaigning through a circuit of churches. As for COVID, we have higher numbers than we've ever seen here in Ohio. The hospital systems here in Central Ohio are getting rid of elective surgeries. We have doctors and nurses saying they are exhausted. So what is your solution to this public health crisis?
Listen, this debate isn't about being pro-vax or anti-vax. It's about being pro-freedom or anti-freedom. And I am strongly pro-freedom. If a mom or dad wants their child to have a vaccine or wear a mask, that's their freedom to decide that. At the same time, if a mom or dad does not want their kid to wear a mask or does not want their kid to have a vaccine, it is their freedom to decide that as well. And this thing has never been about health or science. It's always been about power and control.
I get your pro-freedom, but you haven't answered my question. The question was, what is your answer to this public health crisis? How do you bring it under control?
Well, again, Colleen, if we give the freedom to moms and dads and the freedom to individuals and the freedom to small businesses to decide what is best for themselves and what is best for their families and what is best for their employees and what is best for their children. I mean, listen, you sit there on this perch as a journalist and you lecture the people. The people don't want to get lectured by you.
I asked again and again, does he have a plan to bring down the infection rate and help the overburdened medical community?
The definition of media bias is you asking the same question 4 times in a row, me answering it clearly 4 times in a row, and you acting like I'm not answering it. Like, this is why people are sick of the mainstream media, because you guys are literally a department of the Democrat Party.
Well, I know that you feel that way. I've heard you say it before, but it seems as if when you don't have a valid answer to a question, you just attack the media. And that has been your pattern all along. I've asked you because I'm giving you the opportunity to answer the question. How does giving people freedom bring the numbers down and clear out beds in the hospitals and in a state that has 98% of the people who are dying from COVID unvaccinated? How does your plan work? What is your plan other than saying freedom?
Colleen, Fauci and all the mini Faucis like yourself who are trying to create hysteria and create panic through the media, what you guys have advanced, the argument you've advanced with vaccine mandates and vaccine passports and mask mandates, it's failed.
Ohio's 21-day infection rate average is nearly 19,000 cases a day. What will work? Josh Mandel seems to believe it's simply freedom. Mike Gibbons said something similar.
We live in a free country, and we live in a country where we're personally responsible for ourselves. The government isn't.
98% of the people who are dying here are unvaccinated.
Yeah.
90% of the people in the hospital. So do you see any role for the government in intervening in this public health crisis? What is the role of government?
The role of government is to provide the people with information so they can make their own personal decision.
Gibbons also believes government has a role in school curriculum decisions, and like every Republican in the Senate race, opposes critical race theory.
You're either an oppressed or an oppressor, and you're either oppressed or an oppressor. I think it's a very dangerous philosophy. Its roots are in Marxism. They don't want to say that, but it's true. And I mean, if the founders of Black Lives Matter were all Marxists. It's a very dangerous philosophy.
Can you tell me a school system that's teaching it in the way that you think is improper?
There's a lot of them.
Can you name one in Central Ohio?
City of Cleveland.
Cleveland City Schools and the teachers union there are on the record saying they do not teach critical race theory, they teach history. Still, critical race theory will be a defining campaign issue, as will inflation, border security, and the pandemic. Mandel says you will find him in Ohio's churches.
So our campaign is not based on money like other campaigns. Our campaign is based on grassroots, pro-freedom, pro-liberty, pro-Trump activists throughout the state of Ohio. And it's amazing, like, even though my opponents have spent tens of millions of dollars on TV, I'm still in the lead in this campaign, and we have not spent a dime. And the reason is there's something more powerful than money. It's the people.
Gibbons is traveling the state in an RV and says he, too, will connect with the people.
I think the fact that I'm not a politician, the fact that I spent my whole life in the private sector is something that they find encouraging. They're tired of people yelling campaign slogans and then seeing them go to Washington and stay there forever, make it a career. And I think generally people are happy to listen, and I think we're getting a lot of support on that basis alone.
One politician who is desperately working for a win is President Biden. Up next, his fiery speech for voting rights and why it didn't work.